Well, here we are, and we are going into a new season. I'm talking like I've been picked up by Netflix or something, but not quite. However, you never know your luck. Because when you start things over, and when you think about it, this is a new season, it's a new start, and we could perhaps make some changes, some little things going on. We've got the spring is just about to start into the summer. We've got other things going on. What does starting over mean to you? But before we go through that door, let's ask everybody who they are and where they come from. Willie,
Thanks, Leslie. I'm Willie Nicol, the cop turned coach, former police officer, now a life coach and personal development coach. I stay in sunny Scotland, as you can probably tell from my accent.
Angela,
I'm Angela and I'm a kinesiologist and I work with people who are struggling with the current and want something different. So whether that is health, whether that is mental well-being, whatever it may be, somebody's looking for a change, perhaps a start over. I'm also based in Scotland. It did feel a little bit Cilla Black there as you were asking us who we are and where we come from, but all good.
I wondered where that came from. I was like, oh, I'm sure that's not new. But, you know, give it a little freshen up, take it out, dust it off. Jennifer, do you even know who Cilla Black is? Was?
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Jakowski, and I am a registered psychotherapist, a certified Canadian counselor, and an intuitive life coach. So that Canadian counselor kind of gave it away. I am in Canada, just outside of Ottawa, Ontario, and I help people come home to their true selves in whatever fashion that resonates for them.
And I'm Leslie Marsh, and I'm finding myself a trifle optimistic at the moment. So I'm going to, I don't know why. It might have been the Kit Kat. Um, but yes, I've had a break. So I'm also a therapist. I use a myriad of modalities to help people to move along, go with the flow, find the flow. And I understand that there is an identity beyond the word change. So, starting over. I'm starting to feel like a car. So let's go there. Well, you have to start it every day, don't you? So,
Only if you're going somewhere.
well, yes, this is it. You see, we're starting over. We're going somewhere. Although we could be over starting. And that's another way to put it. Anyway, really shouldn't have chocolate before we start. Say something, Angela.
Not quite sure where to go with that at all.
Make
It
of it what you will.
Before we started recording, you mentioned that there was a song called Starting Over that was in your head. And as you were doing the intro part, my head went to a different song, which goes along the lines of It's a new day, it's a new life, and I'm feeling good. And so I
Oh, Nina
thought
Simone.
that's quite nice of that point of how do we feel good about starting something? Because a lot of times when we're starting something, whether it's a new job or whatever the new thing is, there's a level of apprehension and concern or discomfort about the fact that there is something new. And sometimes that can take over from that feeling of joy and elation and excitement. So it's always an interesting one as to how we frame it to work ourselves to a point of how do we enjoy that starting over and not feeling concerned and scared and, oh my gosh, I'm going back to bed.
I'm wondering, Billy, what do you think? Basically, when we get butterflies, are we being programmed these days to think fear instead of excitement?
I'm not sure about programming, although there is a lot of that going about.
Hmm.
Um, I had to start over just over 7 years ago after a long career in the police service, 7 years in corporate security, and being made redundant, which was a shock to the system. And belatedly, I realised you're going to have to start over. So I went to the default setting of looking at law enforcement security jobs. And during one interview, decided, I don't want to be doing this. I really do not want to be doing this. And then that prompted the question, what next? And prompted with my lovely wife, who suggested I look at coaching. And to cut a long story short, I took up the challenge and I started over as a coach, which was quite a change of direction. Yes, I felt apprehensive after I got over the anger and frustration at being redundant. And there was an element of fear, but there was also excitement. Could I do this? Could I help people? Would it work? What now? And fortunately, that starting over has worked out quite well.
I think that's an interestingly emotional word. Redundant means useless, means not useful anymore,
Oh, you
not
say
to be.
you
Oh,
say
yeah.
that. So it's interesting listening to Willie talk there. So mine's just over 7 years old as well. And I took redundancy. So I didn't want it, but I took it as an opportunity. And it's the second time I'd taken redundancy. The first time I was almost begging for it, but it's the second time I'd taken redundancy. And as I said, it wasn't expected the second time. However, for me, it was that wake up call of I can do something different this time. So the first time I did like Willie, I looked in the same field again. What can I find? What can I find? And I got something else in the same field. And I did that for another 5 years until, as I said, I took redundancy again. And I think it's how you frame it. So Willie embraced it and went for it, whether there was apprehension or not, you went for it and you're still going for it and it's fantastic. I chose similarly to say, I'm going to do something different this time. So I took it as an opportunity, and it's about how you frame these things.
Mm.
So I didn't have the anger. I had a little bit of disappointment, but then that realization of actually, this is a good thing.
So
Yeah.
Jennifer, what do you think?
I love that. When I think about starting over, what comes to mind for me is actually a quote that says, at any point you get to decide this is not how your story is going to end. And it is that ability to completely shift, to change. And as scary as that can be, it's a very empowering thing if we allow it to be. So I love how you were reframing that idea even of redundancy, because at any point we get to decide, you know what? I actually do want to do something different. And we have that opportunity then to start over.
I always thought I knew what I wanted to do. Well, actually, I did know what I wanted to do. And I was very contrary about not letting anybody else keep me off of that road. So much so it got me into trouble a few times with teachers and other people. I remember saying to a secretarial teacher at one point when I had to take my prelims by myself because of a death in the family, I didn't do them with everybody else. And we'd had an interesting relationship, shall we say. I wanted to stay in art, and she wanted me to do my typing exercises. And at one point, my art teacher was telling me how much trouble he was getting into with her. So I had to go and do my lessons, but we were block printing at the time, and I was enjoying myself. We were screen printing. And I got the black printing ink and I dipped my hands in it and managed to get down to the classroom. And she was giving me the riot act and telling me that I was going to stay there and do that. I said, I can't. What do you mean you can't? Right out of my class. But when we were sitting at the prelim, she said to me, she said, why don't you want to do this class? Why don't you like my class? I said, because I don't see me sitting a typewriter on the back end of a horse. And I want to work with animals, particularly with horses. And I don't see one fitting on. And of course, now we can have the whole world while we're sitting on the back of a horse. But in those days, yeah, way back in the wild and woolly, we didn't. We didn't see that far.
It wasn't plugged in back then, right? You could have taken it with you.
You're going to try putting a typewriter on the back end of a horse and see what happens to the back end of the horse. It doesn't stay on the ground, and neither do but you do. So yeah, I mean, there's so many times that people said to me, "Oh, you could do this or you could do that," and I was like, no, 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 no. Somebody said to me at one point, "Do you think that at the age of 50 you're going to be still doing this job?" And I said to them, you're going to find me with rigor mortis with a squeegee in one hand and a thermometer up a dog's backside on the other. Because I don't know how to do anything else. And that was the point. I didn't know how to start over. I didn't know there was another way to start over until the universe sent me a Rottweiler at 3 o'clock in the morning. But that's another story. So, well, basically, when you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, sometimes you get a nudge. I got a 6 stone Rottweiler in a very bad mood because he had a very sore bladder. And he ripped my rotator cuff. So I couldn't hold animals anymore. So I had to change. I wasn't given a choice. I had to go and do something else. And here I am doing this after a whole load of stuff. But a lot of it had got to do with the identity situation. Who I identified as, and with that, what came with it
Is it
was.
just me or have we lost Leslie?
I don't hear her
It's
either.
Can't hear me? Why can you not hear me?
We'll
It's
just-
quite comical. We're starting over with whatever Lindsay wanted to say there, that she just dropped out on. You're back.
Got me? I'm back. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. Wowee. It must be windy outside. Yes, this is the 21st century,
So what were
and
you
we're
saying?
starting over. But there you go. So yeah, identity and ability. We have a familiarity zone that we keep staying in, and we don't like to move. And things like the pandemic actually took everybody out of the one paradigm and shoved us into another one. And there was a whole load of that big word uncertainty, but life is uncertain. So, this is why, we're here, really, isn't it? Because, really, you help men who are uncertain with things.
I certainly do, excuse the pun. The only thing certain in life is death and taxes and uncertainty. We all have to look at the world today. We live in uncertain times. And if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the most basic needs is we like certainty, framework, structure, stability. And when that doesn't happen, we get apprehensive, fearful, all that kind of stuff. However, there is always a choice that can be made. And I had to make that choice. Unlike Angela, redundancy was thrust upon me suddenly and unexpectedly. And dare I say, quite unfairly. But I was obliged to do something. And after I got over the angst and the bitterness and the anger and all that stuff, I realised that I could do something else. I never really thought of it starting over. It was what's the word, pivot, transition, change, and it has worked out to my benefit and hopefully to the benefit of others. So if there's anyone out there who's apprehensive about change or starting over, it needn't be that scary.
Are we really starting over, though, Jennifer? Are we not just kind of moving forward?
I don't know. I like to see it as I think we think of life sometimes as this kind of circle where we're just doing the same thing over and over and we can get stuck in that pattern. And then we think of starting over as like jumping to something else. And then we start doing that pattern, right? Over and over. But I like to think of life more as a spiral. And so each time we come back to something that impacts us, that triggers us, whatever it is, we have an opportunity at that point to do something a little bit different. And so we expand the circle each time we're doing that so that there is a type of starting over that happens, but it is a continuation of a journey. So it's a little bit of both.
I like the idea that there's all the different things about time and how we've all got the same amount of time every day. So we're starting over every day. So every time you get out of bed in the morning, things are going to be different. It's a different day. The weather's possibly different to the day before, especially if you live in Scotland, it could be different the next hour. And so there is a newness about that. So we are starting over every morning. And it's when we forget that we end up in that tiny little circle and we're not ever allowing ourselves to grow into the next spiral and into that next loop of doing something more, doing something different. And then you get into that locked down, I suppose, mindset of, well, nothing's going to change. And it doesn't matter if I get up in the morning. But I think every new day comes with that opportunity that something can be different today.
I think if you, sorry, Jennifer, if you have the choice, you have the option. And if you choose not to see each new day as a new day, that's fine. That's a choice, a decision. But if you choose to say this is a new day, new things can happen, change will only happen if you choose to make the change.
Mm.
Staying stuck in your comfort zone, as I used to do, and staying, dare I say, stuck, becomes a bit boring. So you have the choice to say, no, I'm going to do something new. Even if it's a tiny thing like I'm going to get up this morning and go for a walk, which I don't ordinarily do. In fact, I've just come from a walk after a previous call in which Angela was a member, right? And that wasn't starting over. It was a nice change. It's a nice walk along the beach, a bit windy, quite warm. But I decided to make a change. So instead of doing it first thing in the morning, I did it tea time, our time. And you have that choice. That's the exciting thing about life. You have a choice. You can choose within parameters, to be fair, what you're going to do. And don't frame it as starting over or radical changes. I'm going to do something different because that's what makes life interesting. No, it's not starting over. It's just doing something different. I did something different today. And did I enjoy it? Yes or no? Will I do it again? Don't know. But there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And you're
opens you up to different situations when you do things at different times, though. Because when we get into a routine, it can become very tired. When we go and we do, like taking the dog out for a walk 5 or 10 minutes earlier, you come across more people that you wouldn't normally come across because they'd finished their walk by the time that you'd be coming out, which can be rather exciting at times. But it's change is something that's inevitable. It's there. So what is it about us that we want to dig our heels in, Jennifer?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question. We were, as Angela was talking about this starting over each morning, one of the things that was coming up is the fact that we change more than we give ourselves credit for. We change our clothes, we change our appetites, we change so many things in our experience. And each time we have a conversation, even this conversation, something within us is able to change, to shift. And so I think that when we get into our head around the concept of change, we get very stuck. We get resistant. We don't know if we can. We don't think that there's a possibility there. And yet we are constantly changing, whether we're conscious of it or not. So why not give ourselves that opportunity to consciously and intentionally make a shift? I know I've done this with my kiddos before. They come in and, especially my youngest, and he'll come in and he'll do something. And I just look at him and go, "You want to redo on that one?" He goes, "Yeah." And he turns around, walks out, comes back in. We start over, right? Because we recognize that maybe in that moment there was something going on and we weren't showing up the way we want to, or, communicating the way that we want to. And so I think that there's a beautiful opportunity there if we're not resistant to it, that allows us to try new things and see how that feels.
I like that. Go out, shake it off, and come in with another energy. That is really good.
Do you know what's quite funny is so the first job I was made redundant from, one of the departments I worked in was the change management team or business transformation. And we went around merrily changing things for everybody else in the organization. But if a project came and hit our team, oh my gosh, nobody could cope with change. But we were the ones putting it in there for everybody else. So it was absolutely fascinating to watch my team members thinking, well, no, this is the way we've always done things. But you've just done this to that team and they've had to change and now do this way. And you can't cope with this tiny little change. So it's fascinating to watch just that mindset of, well, it's fine for me to deliver change to other people, but don't expect me to change.
Press the chaos button now. But it's like when you're going in, you even going shopping in the supermarket. You think that you're going to take 2 seconds to go into the supermarket because you know exactly where you're going. And some buggers changed it round because that is an advertising and a selling thing. Make them see something else, make them see something different. it's not in the same place. And it drives me nuts because I don't want to spend my time in the supermarket. I've got better things to do. But still,
It's a deliberate
mm,
policy, Leslie. I mean,
yeah.
I had that confirmed in my own supermarket. Where are the avocados? My wife likes avocados. Oh, they're over. No, they're not. Oh, they must have changed it again. So you've got to walk past that bit
Mhm.
and think, hopefully they're hoping that you'll buy something else on the way past. But
Mm,
the back to change, I think we're all change averse because we are negatively programmed. Uh,
mhm.
we don't like risk. And I was a risk manager in the corporate security game. I had to manage risk and assess risk. And that's because we're kind of negatively minded. If I don't do that, nothing bad will happen, right? What's the worst case scenario? It's the what if question. What if I change and a bad thing happens? What if I change and this horrible thing ensues? And what you need to ask yourself is, what if that's a story I'm telling myself? What if I change it? It's absolutely super. What if I do something different and I really enjoy it? So reframe the what if negative with a what if positive. And a lot of people look at me askance and say, is that it? I said, pretty much, yeah.
Simple. What if we understand that we are adaptable and that's why we're the top of the food chain? That's why we're all over the earth in places, living in places that really we shouldn't be able to, you know. So we're really good at it. But I think it's if you stop and start to overthink it in your own head, and it's something that you're sitting going, oh, but if I do that, and if I do that, and if I do that, and it's all about what everybody else is thinking about what you're doing, and nobody else is giving a damn because they're all thinking their own stuff. So how do we get people to understand that, Angela?
Is it our job to get them to understand it, or is it our job to help them get to a point where they are embracing something different and they're
There you go.
open to something different? I don't think it's our job to change anything. It's our job to be here to help our clients see that there are other options available to them and that it doesn't have to be scary. And whether that's holding their hand through it or just being there to facilitate whatever it is that's going through their head in that moment. I don't think it's for us to get them through it. I think that's something that our clients do for themselves. Otherwise, the next time something comes up that's a change, they're going to need to come back and have us do the exact same process again. And while I'm sure there are potentially people out there who want to keep the clients stuck because it means that they keep coming every week, I'm very much a case of I want to help the clients to improve and get to a point where they don't need that regular hand holding and they can soar themselves.
I love being devil's advocate. It's brilliant fun.
I'm not sure
Jennifer, what do you think?
advocate, but okay.
Well, I ask a question like that, knowing that you're going to come up with an answer that's totally,
Next time I'm just going to agree with you.
no,
That would be
you're
a
going to
change.
change the formula. Don't change the formula.
I agree with you. I tell my clients right off the bat, my job is to work myself out of a job, right? My job is to give you the tools so that you don't need me to journey with you. I'm still going to be here. We can still check in. We can, all of that. But the idea is to help you to be able to navigate the journey on your own. But one of the things that I find often comes up in these sessions has to do with the resistance to change. And a lot of times, you guys were talking about this earlier, it comes back to our identifying with the issues, with the traumas, with whatever it is that we're struggling with. Part of our identity becomes those things. And if we don't work on shifting that and being willing to see ourselves in another way, we're going to have a really hard time making that change and making that shift. And so we look at what is it that holding on to this difficult thing is doing for me. And we explore that. And as we begin to understand, oh, well, it helps me in this way, or it holds space for me to be like this, then we can start to take ownership of the experience. And then we can open that door to change. But I don't think it's a simple thing that we just go, oh, okay, I need to open to change. Sure. And then we make that shift. There is quite a journey to it. And so to what Angela was saying, no, we don't We don't make that change for them, but we hold that space for them to see that something else is possible. And we help them to understand maybe some of that resistance that might be there so that they can work on releasing that and then move forward into change.
It's recognizing that there are resistant patterns as well, and they're underlying. They've become so habitual that they're not even thought about consciously, and that's the difference. But it's kind of allowing people to understand that that is the case, and that it's their pattern. So it's up to them to actually choose whether or not they want to keep running it.
But you facilitate an environment where
Mm.
they give themselves permission to contemplate that change is possible and beneficial. So I don't tell people what to do. I don't try and change them. I don't give them instructions or suggestions. As Jennifer said, you create a space where through interaction, they suddenly have the light bulb moment, think, you know, I can change. That thing I've been doing is not helping me. There must be a better way. And then that opens the door to them identifying what that potential better way could be. And you can see it in their face when the light bulb goes off. Oh, I could do it that way, should I choose to do so. It's a bit like Mission Impossible. Your mission now, Mr. Client, should you choose to accept it, is that change is possible, should you embrace it. And this tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. And when you put it in that kind of way, you go, oh, right, okay, I've got a mission now. I've got a mission to change and I can do that. It's opening the door, opening the mind, whatever you want to call it. And when that realization hits them, it's absolutely wonderful.
I think it's great what you said there about giving permission, because actually that comes up more often than you would think. People seem to be seeking permission to be something that they would like to be, how they would like to be, but they don't think they're allowed to. That can be a bringing up situation.
It's that preconditioning, isn't it? Where we're told, or we're in a situation where everybody else is in this particular way. And for me to think I can do that, who do you think you are? It's
Uh-huh.
that attitude. But there's also that element of the secondary gain. There's always that part that staying where I am serves me in some way. And until we realize what that way is, changing can be really difficult. And I think when you realize what that secondary gain is, or you realize that the pain of staying where you are is more than the pain of changing, that's when you'll change. So for some people, they need to get to that point where staying stuck is so uncomfortable and painful that their only option is to change. It'd be really nice not to have everybody go to that rock bottom place and shift before it gets to there. But for some people, that's where we need to get to before change is the easy option.
Sometimes we have to start over too. When people come in and we get that resistance pattern, sometimes we have to undo the knitting, rip up the knitting and start again from, stitch one. And part of it is it not, that people come to us with one thing. Actually, that's not
That's not a problem.
entirely what it's going to be. So
In
there's
fact,
little hidden gems.
that's not anything to do with what their problem is. It's something
Ah,
completely different.
yeah.
I
And
love
very often they don't know what that is. They present with one, I don't like to use the word issue. I always use thing. They present with one thing, because we've all got things, or stuff, as we say in Scotland. Present with one element of stuff, and the actual stuff is elsewhere. But by if almost empowering them, or say, do you realise you can allow yourself to do this? You're my permission, or their permission. Give yourself permission to at least think about it. And the light bulb comes on, and they think, well, I'm allowed to do this. Of course you are. Of course you are. Give yourself a break. Allow yourself to do this. If I can tell a wee story, I talked with a former client last week, and we did a lot of work, and he went away quite happy. We keep in touch. And during the conversation, he said, I'm now managing quite a large number of staff. And this is one of my staff, a man, who's going through a bad time, and I'm trying to help him. And then I remembered what you taught me, or what I learned from you. And I'm using that to help this dude. And I was absolutely made up. The guy, my client, has remembered the lessons he's learned through our interaction, and he's now using that learning, that knowledge, and that understanding to help someone who was in the same position as he was when we first started working 7 years ago. And I thought, that's the biggest compliment I've ever had. Thank you so much. So it works. And you can pass it on.
Yeah, the best way to do it is to allow them to see, get them understanding that they have the power. It's actually nothing to do with us, really. We're like little people saying, go that way, go this way's open, you can have this way. You choose.
Put,
You mean the little
a
airplane?
signpost.
Yes, the little airport, little bats.
Yes, signpost to the. And when I was doing my police training, they actually taught us exercises how to direct the traffic. You know, stop, go that way. And we had to wear white gloves. This is way, way back in prehistoric times, right? So you're directing, if you like, you're just you can go that way, or you can go that way, but choose the way you want to go. And once they've realised that, oh, I can go that way. Am I allowed to go that way? Yeah, sure. If you decide to do it, you choose to do it, you go that way. But see what happens. Because that way you're going just now is a big stop, because it's not helping you, it's not serving you, it's dragging you down. And as you say, Angela, when it reaches the point of what we call friction, where the friction is so great that remaining as you are, right, becomes overwhelming, I think, oh, there's got to be a better way. And then when you remove that friction, how empowering and uplifting is it? It's like the old metaphorical weight off your shoulders. Like, oh gosh, that feels so much better. And then you berate yourself for not doing it sooner.
Oh yeah, that's always the thing though. Somewhere along the line there has to be punishment for some reason. It's
Is that a Scottish
self-flagellation.
thing? Or Jennifer, is that a Canadian thing too?
It's so
Definitely Scottish.
fascinating what Sorry, it's so
Sorry.
fascinating what the mind does because it's, we always go, well, why can't it just help me be happy? It's like the mind is not here to make us happy. The mind is here to keep us safe. And so it's going to look for every problem and every issue and all of the potential things that could go wrong. And that's what the mind is doing in order to keep us safe. And at some point, that whole even idea of starting over is we have to start over in this place of, no, I'm in charge of my mind. My mind is not in charge of me. And how do we make that shift? And how do we begin to observe what is happening in our mind and all of those patterns and repetition of thought that have been taking charge? And we've been just unconsciously following it, going, oh, I guess this is my reality. But at any point, we can go, wait a minute. No, 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 no. I get to choose. I get to be in charge of what this mind is doing, and I can make this shift. And it doesn't have to be this way.
When we think happier thoughts, our biochemistry in our brain changes a little bit. And you would think, the dopamine button that could be hit that way, we could be, really happy all the time. Unfortunately, we have to keep raising the level to make that happen. So it's like, could we? Can we? Yes, we can. Can we?
I don't know, you were getting to that point that only dogs could hear you, Leslie.
Well, I do talk to dogs a lot.
I do. Very difficult. If you ever go for a walk with Leslie, be warned.
It just gets scary when the dog talks back.
Yes.
Well, that did happen with a baboon once, but we won't go into that. That scared the hell out of me. that was a change back moment. She coughed and I asked her if she had a cold and she went, uh-huh. Well, I went out the door. So I changed my mind about going in.
The one thing that we can guarantee is not going to change is Leslie coming out with really random stories at the weirdest points.
It tickles me to do so. There's something that happens. I have that kind of brain. And I don't even know what's going to come out sometimes.
That's
Makes
kind
life interesting. And that's the thing, though. I was going to say, when we're talking about directions and doing this and doing that and saying to people, these are your choices, this is how it could happen or not, depending how you go. When someone in their family or their close relationships say that thing, they don't believe them. They ignore them. And then they go off and talk to a total stranger and come back with a, hey, guess what? I can do this. But that's just it. Sometimes we need to hear it from a different voice.
Absolutely. Sometimes we need to hear it from multiple places. We'll have sessions and we talk about something, and then they go, oh, yeah, I was talking to so and so, and this is what they said. And then they say, oh, I listened to this podcast, and then this is what it said. And then if they read this book, and it's like, oh, suddenly, I'm like, okay, you needed all of these different ways of hearing this before it finally settled in. And that's okay, as long as you get to that place where you go, I get it now, right? And eventually we do get there.
And whether it's the different voice or it's a different way of hearing it, or we've seen it, or it's something we've experienced, it's all those different modalities coming in. It's the all the senses together, isn't it? That you've got to get that right, exact right trigger point to do something.
The person has to be in the right space, in the right energy, and ready to hear it. And that's what you were saying earlier, Willie, about, it should have happened ages ago. Maybe they just weren't in that space yet. Maybe they were still having the edges knocked off, sometimes quite literally. But, you can only bang your head against the wall for so long without saying, this hurts. And sometimes it's a case of they're trying to bang through the wall.
Very much so. I mean, I used to be a perfectionist. I used to have everything had to be just so. And that was like banging your head off a wall. It was great when you stopped and realised that actually perfection possibly is unachievable. And there's a phrase that says, imperfect action always beats perfect inaction. So the good thing about change is, or starting over, is it just takes one small action, because inaction is not an option, because you'll just stay where you are. Right? You take one small action, one small step, whatever it is, right? That's the first part of changing the process, right? I don't like where I am just now. I want to be somewhere better. Just take one small step for mankind, or all that, whatever it is, right?
I was thinking about that.
Right. And it's each action builds on another action. And then before you know, you're actually on the way. It's every journey starts with one step. I go back to the Hobbit, right? The Hobbit just gets one step out his little round hole, and next thing he's in bloody Mordor or whatever the hell it is, right? And because he chose to put one foot in the front of the other and went to all these magical places. I'm not suggesting we do that, but our insistence on inaction, I'm not doing that. I can't be bothered, whatever it is. Well, you never change. I've said this before. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. And I also say to clients, if you think the same way as you've always done, you'll still get what you always got. Right? So to me, it's a thinking paradigm. And I think Jennifer mentioned mind or mindset or whatever, right? I equate it to, we all have a mobile phone, a cell phone, which is an operating system. And yesterday mine beeped and said, update available. And I thought, okay then. And it tells you all the benefits of updating your operating system. Greater security, better download speed, blah, 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 blah. So I thought, oh yeah, I'll do that. Ding. How often do we update the operating system inside our head, which is a mindset? Right? How often do we update our thinking, our way of thinking, our metacognition, if you like, right? How often do we update the way we think, or the way we think about thinking, right? And if you don't update that operating system inside your head, like your cell phone, it'll eventually just stop working. So if you can update that operating system, and I've actually bought the domain name mindsetoperating-system.com, because I'm going to do something with that sometime. It's that awakening to the realization, yeah, we can change. We can change our thinking. We can change the way we act, thinking, emotions, actions, results, consequences. right? This is what it's all about. If we stay thinking, I can't do that, or thinking, what if a bad thing happens? We'll remain stuck where we are. If we choose or give ourselves permission to think differently, what if I do this and a good thing happens?
Mm.
Oh, I never thought of that. Well, let's give it a bash, shall we? And when you start down that wee road, that first step, that's when the magic happens.
I
Well, we
guess
didn't.
I was going to say it's that point as well that the magic happens. We don't sit here saying, I want to be this, this, and I'm going to snap my fingers and I'm going to be there. It is that starting with one step. And it is that we don't have to have that complete picture of what the end game is. It's enough to know I'm going to go in that direction and taking those steps and seeing I've got to crossroads. Which way am I going to go? Am I going to keep going forwards towards what I thought I wanted to go towards, or shiny object syndrome, or well, this is actually going to give me a better option. Which way do I actually want to go at this point? And it's not a case of you're taking that step and you've got to follow that one particular route. We're not all running a marathon where they've got the cordons out and you've got to go in this particular option. We've got points where we can say, is this still where I want to be going? I don't want to go back. I don't want to stand on this crossroads for the rest of my life. I've got choices here and I'm going to pick one. And it is just that keep taking the small action points and the small steps forwards, and you'll get to whatever the finishing line for you is the finishing line you want to have. And then you'll turn around and realize that there's another path to take because we're not at the end yet, are we? Hopefully.
Absolutely.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Mm-hmm. To Willie, what you were sharing about the thinking, one of the quote that's attributed to Einstein, and it says we cannot solve the problem with the same thinking that we use to create the problem, right?
Mm.
So being able to recognize that need to shift, otherwise we will just continue to do what we're doing. But what was coming up for me as you were sharing, and to what we were saying earlier about how, sometimes we have to hear things many times, is the idea of the stages of change that we go through. And so, depending on where we are along our process of change, remembering the action only comes, at the later stages of it, if we're just in a place where we go, you know what, I think there's something here I need to change. Well, no, we're not in that place where we're ready to do that. So, those action steps are going to look very, very different than the action steps that are going to happen after we've really contemplated it and we've prepared for it. Or if it's been kind of thrust upon us and we haven't had a choice, then obviously we're thrown right into action. But I do think that there is a piece where it is very important that we still allow ourselves the time to feel what we need to feel and to think about what we want to do without just jumping into something else, because that also can create its own issues in our experience.
There's a little bit of, no, you do it first so I can see what you do and how you do it and what happens. But then it's never going to happen the same way for, like, everybody. But it's raining in the amygdala when it's going, danger, warning, warning, no, stay here, stay here. And you're like, if we did that, we'd still be in caves. We wouldn't be, we'd probably be extinct, never mind still being in caves.
But the
Because
ones that did do that are extinct.
yes, yes. So we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep doing the thing. We have to understand that, yes, some things are going to be totally in our remit, and some things are going to be in somebody else's remit.
And that's okay.
It's okay because we're all a little piece of the jigsaw. And we can either fall down the back of the couch and be just, not used, not fulfilling a purpose, not doing anything. Some people will like it that way. They like dust bunny company. Some people like to go out there and feel the wind in their hair. It doesn't, even if they don't have any, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Life, I I heard somebody say something similar today. Life is for living, so get on with it. Stop worrying about what people think about you because they actually don't. They're too busy thinking about what everybody else thinks about them, too. So, if you've got something that you really, really want to do, and you have the space and time to think about it, then you have the space and time to take another step towards it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it again. You can think about something else. And it might take you on a nice wee journey because you might be thinking, like Angela said, you're going that way, and actually you find yourself somewhere over here. But the company is what counts. When you've got good company and you're being supported and you're supporting yourself, and we can do that because we all have knowledge and we all have bits of wisdom that we've picked up across the way, and all we have to do is apply it and map over what we know and see how it fits in another territory. But we can start over every minute of every day because we start with choices. And somebody comes up and it can be as simple as, oh, you usually have that for your lunch. No, I want something else today. I'm going to get up and make myself something else. I'm going to find a new recipe. And guess what? A recipe is not solid. It's not stuck. A recipe is just a guideline. So choose a recipe. And if the ingredients aren't there, make them up as you go along. It might taste good or it might taste like crap. But at least you will have discovered it. And you can do it differently again the next time. And we'll see you next time when we'll be wittering on about something else. And I'll try not to tell so many stories.